All right, we're back to finish the anchor locker. So if you were with us last time, you remember that we have cleaned out the anchor locker as well as repainted the inside with bilge coat. Took advantage of being up in that space to replace the nav lights up at the bow, the shark eyes on either side, and then we went to work on the bulkhead to close a gap and make some repairs to the V-berth door. So now that all of that is done, we're on to the main components of the anchor locker, and that's the anchor itself. So we have cleaned up the Rockna anchor. We have brand new chain that has arrived. We're going to flake that out and put some markings on it for our measurements. We got new road to attach, and then of course we got to get everything loaded back onto the boat, anchor back on the bow roller, and chain put back in the locker. So we're going to reassemble it all and finish her off. We spent decades chasing the American dream, only to realize that working more to have more wasn't exactly the dream we expected to be living. Together, we walked away from it all to rediscover what's really necessary to live a rewarding life. Inspired by other YouTubers, we bought a fixer-upper sailboat in the hopes of discovering the world anew. Just as soon as we learned to sail. So this project is beginning with us flaking the chain out a bit, and what we're after here is some measurements that we can put on the chain. So we've made some marks on the dock at 25 feet and at 50 feet. And here at 50 feet, what we've done is put a little cardboard down, and we're going to spray paint the chain something really, really bright. We're also going to test a couple of these little rubber markers. They're yellow. I'll show you a finished one. There you go, of the whole thing. But the idea is we want to see that as it passes through the windlass, so we know how much chain is out. The other end of the chain is a little different procedure. We need to attach it to this line, which is called road and makes up the second part of our ground tackle. So in this case, we are braiding the two together. Slippery Dave is helping out with this portion by braiding the chain and the rope together. So you might ask, like, well, why aren't these just tied in? Or is there not some kind of a shackle or some, large piece of hardware to attach it? And the answer is because that would not pass through the windlass. And we want this to be able to be seamless so that we can crank it down. So it's braided together so that it stays continuous. And once braided, we've burnt the ends off, and then we will sew them together here in order to keep anything from coming undone. Slippery Dave's the man on this one, man. He took this part on and knocked it out while I moved on to the 75-foot mark. And we originally started to paint it orange again, but I ran out of orange paint here, so we had to come up with a plan B. The chain's going to attach to the anchor by using this shackle, which is assembled with some grub screws and allows 360 rotations so that nothing gets twisted or hung up. To continue our markings on the road, I'm putting a couple of nylon markers through. These are just going to be braided into the chain and give us the total measurement, if you will, of both chain and road that is out, so we know how much anchor line has been put out. And this is the bitter end of the road. That's where it attaches to the boat and the anchor locker.
I've broken many a mirror, many a camera. Almost there.
Going to be easy now?
Just use the chain as we go. There's not a twist in it. It just seemed like there was a lot of twists, but there's none here so far. Okay.
Okay. Good. All right, now that we have the anchors back on the bow roller, I want to show them to you as they're mounted. All right, so this first bad boy here is a Rockna 20. That's our starting quarterback. The roll bar that's it looks like it's along the top of it. As the anchor is dropped, that helps it orient itself. So if it lands funny, it will roll in order to be able to plow. So what makes the Rockna so popular, or kind of what makes it our starting quarterback? It digs. It's a digger. So the idea here is that the harder that you pull on this anchor, the deeper it goes. So definitely our digger. I will say one of the negative though things, as long as I'm giving it credit, is that man, it pulls up some muck when you bring the thing out. So this anchor's coming up on our windlass. I remember this sprayer from a prior episode where we were getting the pumps together, but the idea is this helps us clean the chain and the anchor when that bad boy comes out. So anyway, our backup quarterback is sitting on the other side, and this is a CQR anchor, which stands for, I think it's Coastal Quick Release. If I'm wrong about that, I'll update it in the notes. And it sits perfect here, but what you might notice is it has like a swivel on the side. It actually has a moving part. That takes a little bit of service, or at least you got to stay up with it. The CQR anchor is a little more old school. I think it was 1930s, I'm pretty certain that's correct, but it's essentially based on the same design as an agricultural plow. So that makes it really, really good for hard sand and hard mud, because it really digs and grabs. This is a holder. In fact, it has really superior strength on that. Doesn't require as much ground tackle. So we only have, it's 40 feet of chain that we have attached to it, and then we have another 170 feet, that's correct, of road, taking us up to 210 feet. Conversely, if you were to drop that anchor into soft sand or mud, it works just like you would imagine with an agricultural plow. It just kind of continues to plow along a furrow, if you will, along the bottom, and will it allow us to drag. So not good in that situation, but it is extremely good in the hard sand and hard mud application. All right, I want to show you one other type of anchor that we're carrying on board as well, and this is our emergency reserve anchor. So this, I guess, would be called anchor number 3, and it is a fortress anchor. Okay, so the fortress anchor is an aluminum fluke style anchor. It's really lightweight, but has really strong holding power. And the reason that this is important to us, or the lightweight is important to us, in fact, I can tell you I can just very easily lift it standing here, is that this is not going to be on a windlass. There are two things I like about the fortress anchor. Number one is it has like a lifetime guarantee for its parts, so if anything goes wrong, they will guarantee it and ship you out new things. And the second is, with 2 bolts, one here, one here, the entire anchor can be disassembled and comes out in pieces. And so actually here is anchor number 4, which is a small fortress anchor that is inside this bag. In fact, I think I can probably open this up a little. So now I've got the bag open. You can see this is a smaller version of the same anchor, but everything comes in smaller pieces and can be assembled quickly once it's on board. So now that the new anchor chain and rod have been put on the anchor and the anchor on the boat, I'm going to try to deal with the old chain. I'm going to show it to you here. This is the old anchor chain and the rod. And what I've done is I've been soaking the chain in vinegar for 6 days. So actually don't know if this is going to work at all. Totally a Google searched internet suggestion thing, but what I thought I'd do is pull it out of the vinegar this morning. We're going to wash it off with the hose. I'm kind of taking advantage of a little bit of a misty morning to use some of the rain. So let's see if this takes off anything. So to be clear, this was the before. You can see how rusty that looks, right, coming out. A lot of that chain's not going to be salvaged. And then as we get closer, I don't know if that's like, it's previously been cold galvanized. That's kind of what it looks like. You have to paint that all over again. I think that could be the answer, but man, this first bit, this isn't looking so bad. The road's not looking great. I don't know, that's just rope line now. We'll let this dry and see what comes out of it. Okay, so I've flaked out the chain a little bit to let it dry, and I have measured out 2 20-foot runs. Okay, so this is 1 boat length worth of chain. Now this is chain number 3, or at least perhaps option number 3. So just in emergencies or unique situations. And what I want to be able to do is put a shackle at each end of this, as well as clips or shackles on a piece of line that we can use as road as well in order to give us options. But for now, cleaning up this chain, we're going to cut it at 40 feet, and then we're going to move on to some cold galvanizing. Alright, well, I'm finishing this project off by taking a perfectly good bucket and drilling some holes in the bottom of it. Now we're going to store our chain. I've cut that 40-foot boat length, and then I also cut one of 10 just as another reserve, and you can see the shackle that I've put on here just as kind of a holding thing. We ran out of paint. We had a little extra paint left over, so I painted as much as I could. That's as far as I could get. Alright, there you have it. Ready to load in the lazarette in case of emergency. Well, interrupting our progress on any new projects, or continuing with new things, is our water pump. And the symptom it was having is it's continually running. So my thought was, actually I guess it's not continual, it would continue to come on, and then it would settle for a bit, and then absent of turning on any water or anything, I would hear the pump come back on again. So that's actually indicative of low water. Like low in our tanks. So that actually made some sense to me that the tank would be low. So I went ahead and added some water shock or water treatment to the water, because I've been waiting for that, and I filled up. I was running on just the starboard tank. The port tank was already full. So as opposed to switching tanks, I just refilled, turned everything back on again. Kind of getting the same symptoms, but I'm not getting any water pressure. In fact, I'm just spitting air. So that led me to think that maybe there is some air somewhere in the system. I tried to bleed a few things off. That's not actually working. So we're going to take apart the pump and see if there's something wrong with the diaphragm itself. Sometimes some debris gets in there, and you know, anything that's going to prevent that valve from closing, wow, it's good and tight, will cause it to continue to run, or at least it won't be able to maintain pressure. So the way this works is there's like a switch on top. I don't know if that makes sense. It actually activates it here. This is the switch. And so when it reaches a certain pressure, this diaphragm pushes out, hits the switch, and that's a kill switch, so it turns itself off. The idea would be you open the valve or open the sink someplace, open the faucet someplace, that allows this diaphragm to drop as the pressure drops, and the switch then reactivates or turns on. So this becomes a demand pump, constantly keeping pressure between the pump and the fixture, but not necessarily maintaining high pressure back to the tank itself, if that makes sense. It's primarily kind of pump on, but we got to kind of keep this thing primed. So running a few tests, trying a few things out. We're going to start with trying to clean this thing up. Okay, so now that we've gotten this cover off, alright, so that's not so bad. Switch looks pretty good. We'll clean this up kind of last. This actually is the set of diaphragms that we're concerned with. So we'll try to break the seal here. There we go. Alright, so once the pressure is broken, got one more chamber here. Alright, there we go. So, oh yeah, I guess we do have a little. So these are the 3 chambers. They're actually little mushroom valves here on top. And look, I've got some kind of gunkiness right up here. So we got the first set off. It's not gonna be hard to see these, but they're small little rubber valves kind of inside of this that need to be pretty clean. I want to make sure that there's no gunk in those, but we'll clean those up as well. You can also see we're starting to get the inside undone, right? So you can kind of see a little build up there. I'm going to try to get both sides of this cleaned up too. So get some degreaser, take those screws out, we'll see what we're working with. Look, so I'm just taking that off. You can see how gunky this is, right? So we'll try to get that clean. It's not looking too bad, but we'll get a clean surface on the other side of this as well for it to match up to. One of the things I probably ought to admit is that if I was working with a spare, right, if I had a backup water pump someplace on board, well, one of the things we could do is just grab the backup, put it in place, and see if this is a pump or a line issue. So I don't want to represent that simply cleaning the pump is going to work on everything. We're going to have to also go to the lines now and make sure, because that's the only thing that actually changed. We didn't do any changing of the pump, but maybe the pump needed some maintenance. Anyway, the point of this is I don't have a spare one on board, so I should probably also admit that the first stop I made during this was to order a backup water pump so that we have a spare on board. And this absolutely illustrates why we don't want to cast the lines quite yet, right? So it's one thing to have access to local stuff. It's a whole nother thing, especially during COVID, to have access to Amazon. So Amazon and shipping is becoming kind of critical to us as we begin to finish things up and make certain that we're checking boxes getting ready to leave. So I'm hoping there's some tolerance to be had that this diaphragm just doesn't have to be perfect to be able to work, but you can see some of the gunk there. I think we got this, it's certainly an improvement. Let's see if we can get it together without any pinholes, extra screws, anything else, but and then we'll bring it up to pressure. Alright, so we got it reassembled now. One thing I did is I put an extra set of leads on, just because I didn't want the wire to be the constraint or be pulling on things. So we're going to put a short line here on this, just put it in a bucket of water. We're going to hit the breaker real quick. Let me see if I can reach it from here. Alright, well, that seems pretty good. Okay, so a little bit of new Teflon tape, and what we're going to do is go right back into the old compartment. You can hear it trying to build pressure there. The next test, pump with 1/2-inch line. You can see the water moving through. I have hooked it up directly to the water supply underneath, and you can see the water there. We're also creating a little demand by keeping the faucet open. So this may indicate we have problems with the line. Alright, so we're going to kill the demand, and we're going to see if the pump stops running. Here, I'll leave you here. You can kind of see the water. And we need the pump to realize we're okay, no more demand, and to shut off. Got a little more water moving through. No, pump's not shutting off. Okay, well, this next experiment, I'm sorry to say I did not film, but you can probably tell by looking at me. I got into the anchor lock, into the lazarette. Too much time in the anchor locker. And I've run a brand new line from here underneath the cockpit out. And you're not going to be able to see it, but it goes essentially right through there. This is the old line that I still have in place. The new one is down there, and we're going underneath the sink. So we're going to turn this on. We should see some suction if we create demand. Okay, pump's on. I don't know that we're going to be able to see anything actually underneath. Can't really see anything there, but what we'll do is create a little demand here with the sink. It should take a few minutes, and that should really start pumping if we are creating enough suction, or we have a good vacuum on this side of the pump. So we should see volume increase. Oh, maybe a little air coming through. Okay, well, I didn't do anything except just stand here for a minute. I guess it heard me cussing because now it's really moving. Check that out. That's what I'm talking about. Alright, now, if we turn it off, the question is, will the pump stop? Ho! It did. Demand. Wait for the pump to kick on. Pump's on. Turn it off. Pump kicked off. Well, there you have it. After all of that, it was the line. I mean, the pump needed to be rebuilt as well. It was having problems, right? We weren't quite getting the suction, so I guess it was both. But whew, that was a lot of tests for no result. Well, that project sucked. I think I just wasn't mentally ready for it. I'm trying to do like new things. I hate stopping and having to fix things. I guess that just shows, you know, the fact that I'm living on a boat. But you know, it's all bikinis and palm trees here. So I ended up running the new line, and many apologies for not filming it since you came with me this whole way. If you could have seen it, I was down in the lazarette running the line that I was just pointing at, and I had great intentions. I had the camera out, and it was just, I couldn't reach it. So I just decided to keep going and run the line as opposed to get out and grab the camera. So now I'm kind of regretting it because I think you would have appreciated that little bit of boat yoga. My shoulder's hurting a little now that I was kind of stretched out. But anyway, got that done, and you know, now it's time to get back onto other projects.